And we are back on the build phase. I'm Mr. Ben, and today we are going to be talking about a 200 card box of Versus 2PCG for the first time in what feels like forever. It hasn't even been a year since our last 200 card box, and we did get a little spoiled last year with so many 200 card boxes, one right after the other. So this is exciting. This is going to be a revisit of teams that haven't gotten the most love over the history of the game. I am going to be reading, reacting to, thinking about all the cards in the set throughout the course of this podcast. They were posted on Discord by Mitch on the 20th. So thanks to Mitch for putting all the card images together in one place so I don't have to have 50 browser tabs open to do this show. Let's just dig in. So I'm going to start with Moon Knight. At level 1, this guy is a 7/3/5 with range. That's a aggressive stat block. Moon Knight starts the game with a personality pile. We'll get to that in a second. Packed with Khonshu, this game, ignore Moon Knight's first fatal wound. So functionally, he's got 6 wounds, not 5, because of this like weird ignore a wound power that he has. Fist of Khonshu, main phase, pay a blue, put 3 -1 counters on an enemy character. We've seen this power or versions of this power over and over again throughout the game. It's always good. Being able to hit something for -3 kills a lot of smaller things. It brings units down into range so that my character can eat your character and not get eaten back. Very solid stuff. This also includes Moon Knight transforming into a random personality. So the personality pile is going to be other level 1 characters. So I haven't read through these, but my assumption, just kind of glancing at them, is that this guy has no level up condition. He just switches between these other personalities. Jake Lockley. So this guy's a 3/7/5, aka Moon Knight. This game starts in your this card alternate personality. This card starts the game in your personality pile. Not sure why I had so much trouble with that. Taxi Driver. Main phase red, reveal 3 cards from the top of your deck, put a location from among them face up in your resource row, and the rest on the bottom of your deck. Then he transforms into a random personality. That is a main phase power. So Fist of Khonshu is a main phase power, so you could chain these together. Mr. Knight, he's a 5/5/5. aka Moon Knight, starts in your personality pile. Detective, main phase, pay a yellow, draw 3 cards, and then transform. That's very good. Stephen Grant. This stat line is hilarious. A 0/10 starts the game in personality pile, aka Moon Knight. Put 3 +1 counters on a character on your side and transform. So randomness is by definition the enemy of consistency. Consistency is what competitive decks are generally built around. Is this guy, all of these effects are good. Every single one of them. All versions of this guy have good effects. Their stat lines are varying degrees of good depending upon the situation. Mr. Knight as a 5/5, they all have 10 points worth of stats, which is a lot for a level 1, but they're distributed in 4 different ways. We have a 7/3, a 3/7, a 5/5, and a 0/10. It is going to happen some of the time that you're going to use the power, like, say on Moon Knight, you're going to kill a thing with those -1 counters, and then you're going to change into a dude that's not helpful for the situation. Like an ideal game state is you put those -1 counters on somebody, you change into Mr. Knight and draw 3 cards, then you change into Stephen Grant and pass to your opponent as a 0/10, or even better, a 3/13. Like that is crazy. But that's also, we're talking about a turn 1 that requires 3 different colors of locations. I mean, in the power format where you have one of each location lined up, that seems pretty disgusting. Like, what a hilariously powerful turn 1. I think though, in the grand arc of time, in formats where you don't start the game with superpower symbols at your beck and call, this guy looks much worse. His draw, he's going to be so draw dependent. This card says kitchen table to me initially, although I'm a little hesitant to put him into that bucket because all of these effects are good. All of these stat lines are above grade. It's just you don't control There's no control over which one is which. Now, if I am Jake, I wonder what the sequencing is. Like, am Jake Lockley, say, and I pay a red, does Jake go back into the personality pile and shuffle with the other characters? Or does he stay in play until such time that we have shuffled? So you can't get the same one twice in a row. That's probably clarified in the rules. My guess is he has to transform, therefore he can't stay the same, so we can't get the same one twice in a row, but that's totally a guess. This character seems really fun. I, Competitive, he seems untrustworthy. Like, man, all I need to do is transform and become Moon Knight again, and then I win the game because I'm not going to take fatal damage. No, I didn't get it. Crap, I lose. Something like that. I don't know. Seems really fun. I'm really looking forward to playing with this guy, but I'm not convinced that he's going to have any kind of a presence at a competitive table. Okay, Daredevil. He is a 3/3/5, which sounds bad, but the first words in his text box are martial artist, which makes him a 5/5/5 at level 1, which is not bad. Echolocation, any turn combat. Use a red. If it's a melee, Daredevil strikes with double his attack and before enemy characters. Noticeably, he doesn't gain ferocious. He just strikes before enemy characters. So the way I read that, he beats a ferocious attack. Like if there's regular attack timing, ferocious goes before that. This power would seem to go before that based on this reading. I get to save the world. Whenever Daredevil makes a melee attack, he gains 1 XP. This is much easier to do than some other Daredevils we've seen. I do want to comment on there. I like this art because it seems like there's a lot going on, but Bert pointed out that Daredevil isn't even centered in the art on his own card. And that is a fair criticism. Like, I almost feel like if they took this panel of Daredevil and flipped it 90 degrees so it made it look like he was falling rather than jumping into Hulk's face, you could zoom in on Daredevil and make it look like he's like falling out of the sky on top of somebody. Like, that would be cool. I do like it, but I can't refute Bert's critique that like he's the main dude. Like, he should be centered. He should be the biggest guy. It is a little bit busy for a main character. Okay, moving on to his level 2. Once he gets those melee attacks in, he becomes a 7/7, but with martial artist, he'll be a 9/9. That is a beefy level 2 stat block. He retains echolocation, which is nuts. So now for a red, he can strike for 18 and do it before. Gosh, that's good. Defense attorney, any combat, pay yellow. If he's defending, he gets +5 defense. So he has a built-in super senses and a built-in double his attack ferocious. Yeah, this guy seems like pretty juicy for the people who want to turn right and stack wounds. That is a very aggressive main character. Iron Fist 2/4/5 also has martial artists. I love how much they use martial artists these days. This is one of the best keywords they've come up with in the entire history of the game. It's a way that they can give these characters not crazy stats, but they have the ability to show off they do get crazy stats when they're attacking under certain conditions. So it's kind of like a flexible way to buff these characters. And I think it's just worked so well. Ever since the first set where this has shown up, every time it shows up on a character, it feels impactful, it feels meaningful, but not overpowered. I love this. Like, this is an example of like a perfectly balanced keyword. Anyway, that has nothing to do with Iron Fist. So he's a 2/4/5, becomes a 4/6/5 while in melee combat. The Chi of Shao Lao, apologies if I mispronounce that. Main phase blue, add 3 Chi counters to Iron Fist that remain on him while he's face down. Okay. When he gets melee attacked, gain an XP. When he gets range attacked, gain 2 XP. You need 4. So we go from that to level up into a 6/6 with Master Martial Artist. So he's a 10/10 in melee combat. Holy smokes. Wow. That's that's a chunky stat line, man. I was happy with Daredevil's 9/9, and this guy's a 10/10, but printed 6/6. Release Chi. If this is a melee combat, remove any number of Chi counters from Iron Fist and do one. Then for each one, do one of the following. Okay, so if he's got 3 Chi counters, we'll get all 3 of these. He can't be struck this. And do we have to remove all of them? Hold on. No. So we remove any number, and his level 1 lets us stack 3. So we could stack up like 9 if we wanted to, and then pull these effects off one at a time. They don't get wiped by being stunned, and you're not required to spend all of them. That's cool. So he can't be struck this combat. Oh, and this isn't any combat power. Well, you do have to have the reds to fund removing him. So when he strikes a defender this combat, stun it and ready him at the end of combat. Oh, wow. So he could attack. You could attack with your 10-10 twice. And even if it's like Galactus, you can still wow. Wow. Oh man. Oh wow. That's so cool. So I immediately have conflicted emotions about this card because the first thing I was gonna say is this is like all the best bits of all the Iron Fists we've seen over the years of the game packed together into one card. It's like this is the Iron Fist that has everything and the kitchen sink. And that immediately filled me with a wave of melancholy because I remember in old verses when the final set came out, it felt like a kitchen sink set where they just packed every crazy thing in there. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about this Iron Fist. This card is great. I mean, yeah, there's going to be those games where you don't see the blues you need early and you can't get cheat up and your opponent, and that is the counterplay to this guy. You just attack him a bunch real fast before Iron Fist sees his blue, and then at level 2, he's basically a blank 10-10. Well, okay, he's a 6-6 with Master Martial Arts, but you blank the release chi if he can't build it up at level 1. That can and will happen, but man, do you even care? Like, if your opponent rushes you to become a 10-10, so now it's, what, turn 3? Maybe turn 4, and I'm a 10-10? Like, I don't feel bad about that at all. This guy's great. This guy looks like so much fun to play. Jessica Jones, 436. I like that 6 health with flight. It always makes me laugh when Jessica Jones has flight. Like, I know it's comic accurate, but like, because she didn't do it in the show. You know what I mean? Or at least I don't remember her flying in the show. Will this hurt more? Main phase, pay a green, choose an enemy supporting character. Jessica and that character strike each other. Uh, oh, who will this hurt more? I misread that. I am not crazy about that, especially with her stats being a 4-3. Like, she's probably going to get stunned back. Why not just attack in that case? I guess this lets her get to a back row, but it can't hit the main character, so you can't use it to stack wounds. I don't think situationally there's going to be times where it's worth it to take a wound on your MC just to make sure you clear out a problematic supporting character. But how often are you going to be willing to pay a whole card and take a wound on your MC to make that happen? Just a quick note on this art. While this art does look really, really cool, this is not how you throw a punch. When you connect with a punch, your 2 big knuckles need to be connecting with the target, not your 2 small knuckles. This is exactly wrong, even though it looks cool. At level 2, she still has Who Will This Hurt More? And this still isn't great at level 2 because she's only a 7-5. So it's likely she's going to take hits back if she's going after meaningful targets with Who Will This Hurt More? Stay out of my head. Main phase, pay 2 yellow, look at an enemy player's hand and choose up to 2 characters there. They discard those cards. Probably this is good. Making an opponent discard 2 cards is pretty awesome, but if your opponent doesn't have any characters in hand, it becomes a lot less good. She has to strike and get struck to gain XP. So if we look at like 2 per turn, then we're looking at like a level 5 level up. So the opponent's hand still is probably going to have some stuff going on there. I guess the idea is you use this and you pick off whatever their top of the curve bombs are, and then use the information you gained by peeking at the hand to kind of play around whatever's left. There is a chance that you're going to pay 2 yellow, look at the hand, and it's going to be locations, events, and there's not going to be 2 targets. That's going to feel terrible. I don't know how often that's going to happen, but yeah, I don't think I like this Jessica Jones main character very much. The who will this hurt more power, I'm pretty ambivalent on. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be times where it's going to be useful, but I don't want to use it and take wounds on my main character just so I can accelerate my level up. And this level 2 is expensive. And I guess if you play other cards, there are other cards in the Defenders team affiliation that will let you look at the opponent's hand. So I guess if you can, play out that Misty Knight or whatever it is and take a peek at the hand and line it up so that when you pay those 2 yellows, you're going to hit like their 7 and their 8 drop. You're going to hit their top end, like something meaningful. Sure. Okay. I really wish this was just look at the enemy player's hand and nuke 2 cards. Limiting it to characters feels like unnecessary for how expensive it is. And given the rest of her kit, I don't know. I think I might be out on Jessica, I'm afraid to say. All right. Or it could just be after coming off Daredevil and Iron Fist and Moon Knight with all she's just not maybe I should have started with her and I wouldn't be so harsh on her. All right, let's look at Luke Cage. So Defenders affiliated. I actually think I've forgotten to say Defenders affiliated for all the other main characters. These are all Defenders affiliated MCs. Luke Cage is a 5/4/4. Excellent card art. Like it a lot. Hard-earned lessons, main, pay yellow, draw a card, then draw another card for each XP Luke has. Street fighting experience. When Luke gets turned face down, he gains 1 XP. Oh, so that happens even if it's not a stun. So if you had something like Play Dead, like if you're doing a Defenders Underworld mix, you could get him face down, gain that XP. So the most cards you're going to draw. So you get a card, 2. So the most you could get is 3 off 1 activation. But if you spread his level up over 3 turns, you could draw 1, potentially 2 on turn 1, 3 on turn 2, and then another 3 on turn 3, and then get your 3rd experience. So that is a lot of extra card draw, assuming you have the yellows for it, which is a pretty big assumption. But let's see where we get. 7/5/4. Wait, was he a 4 at level 1? Oh, wow. How did that fly past me? That sucks. 4 health is terrible. That's really bad. Heal a wound so main phase, healing factor, pay a green, heal a wound, and this is unlike the original Luke Cage where it lets him prevent a wound. This just lets him take one off. So even if you're getting beaten up, you can rip those off of you. When Luke gets stunned in melee combat while defending, he doesn't get wounded. So you got to range attack him. Yellow and green, which I feel like is the same colors he was on before. Here's what I like. I like the idea that this is a somewhat aggressively statted main character. He's not leaning super hard into aggression, but he's leaning aggressive, but he still has a decent butt. His health is a huge liability. If you get the yellows early and you can line them up so that I guess you wouldn't be able to use them after he got stunned. Okay, so yeah, that doesn't actually work. My math from before is wrong. Because turn 1, if he gets an experience on turn 1, you're not going to be able to use the power after he gets the experience. So let's say we draw a card on turn 1, then we gain an experience. On turn 2, we draw 2 cards, and then we gain an experience. On turn 3, we draw another 2 cards. Okay, so at best, you're going to draw 6 cards. You spend a yellow on turn 1 and draw 1, you gain an experience. Assuming that you gain an experience per turn. So then on turn 2, you spend a yellow and you draw 2 cards and you gain your 2nd experience. On turn 3, you spend a yellow and you draw 3 cards. So that's 3, 2, 1. So 6 total cards. Luke Cage ends up able to draw, assuming 1 experience per turn. So this could be more, could be less as well. And I suppose it's worth pointing out, even in this Rainbow Unicorn Land scenario where you get 1 experience per turn and draw all the yellows, you're spending 3 cards to draw 6 cards. So it's really only a net gain of 3 cards. And that requires a lot of things to line up correctly. At level 2, you lose this power, but you get this like healing ability. Yeah. If you can just keep using that healing factor, you can potentially just not die. But there are ways, opponents don't necessarily have to attack via melee combat. 5 is not a very big number on the defense, and 4 is a very small number for health. So can your healing outrace their damage? It kind of depends on your opponent's deck to some degree, but I feel like there's something here. I think there's the ability to just heal a wound off your main character, full stop. That is too strong to ignore. I think there's something here. All right, moving into some supporting characters. 5 cost, Jake Lockley, Defenders affiliated, 4-10-1. 14 composite stats on turn 5. Okay. One of a kind. Oh, well, there you go. Moon Knight. Cabby, pay a red, turn a face down location in your resource row face up. Cool. Cool. I like that this is on a very durable body as well. Integrated personalities. While Jake is in combat, anytime you could take an action, you may transform him into a character with integrated personalities from your hand, then put this card into your hand. He can't transform again this combat. All right, so where are the other personalities? I want to read those now. Moon Knight, also a 5 cost. This one's a 10-4, so composite of 14. Again, I really like this. I like that all the main characters had the same composite stat line, and it seems like that's going to be the case with the supporting characters. Moon Knight is also one of a kind. Fist to the head. That's kind of a corny name for power. Pay a blue, put 2 -1 counters on an enemy character in the combat. Integrated personalities. Well, we kind of already went over how that works. Mr. Knight is a 7/7/1, has any combat, pay a yellow, draw 2 cards, as well as the rest of the stuff that all these characters have. One of a kind, aka Moon Knight. And Stephen Grant is a 0/14, pay a green, put 2 +1 counters on a character on your side in the combat. Wow. So some of these are just gonna not be good depending upon what you're going up against. If you're fighting a main character who isn't going to struggle to get to 4 attack, which is most of them, or even 7 attack, like on Mr. Knight. I mean, 7/7 on 5 is a respectable stat block. 14 composite stat, 0/14 on 5. There are things that are really going to struggle to deal with that, but they can also fly over him. There's out of combat stuns. There's stuff like the Iron Fist effect. So there are ways to deal with that 14, but that's a giant butt on turn 5. How often are you going to have these cards in your hand to do the integrated personality thing? I mean, I think about how often power-ups line up and how often they don't. It's probably playable if you sort of commit to this being your 5-drop, but then if you draw the wrong one, it's interesting. I think it's cool. Like, this is one of those things that I think Super Awesome Games did a really neat thematic thing with this package of characters. Is it going to be competitively viable? I feel like in a competitive environment, you're almost always going to want a 5-drop that behaves in a predictable way. You're going to want to know what you're playing on 5, how it's going to work. And this thing has such high variance that makes me wonder how much of a presence it'll have at the competitive level. But as far as a fun character, man, this thing looks cool. 1 cost, Colleen Wing, Defenders affiliated, 2/2/1 with martial artist. So she's coming into play as a 4/4 in melee combat. And pay a blue and add a chi counter to Colleen if she doesn't have one. While she has a chi counter, if she would get stunned by being struck, remove the chi counter instead. I absolutely do not care about that superpower. I cannot imagine a world where I would pay a blue just to keep a 1-drop around, like paying a whole card to keep a 1-drop around. That feels really, I mean, I guess if your plan is to try to just flood the board with these martial artist characters and be able to maintain that board presence and pressure, maybe it's worth it. But man, if you're like on a main character who uses blues at level 1 but doesn't use them at level 2, or I guess like the Moon Knight main character is going to have to run all the colors but not really necessarily be using all of them for the main character. Maybe this could be like a secondary outlet in a deck that also wants to go wide and have the extra blue. I don't know. I'm not into it. I like the art, but I'm not into it. Iron Fist, 1-drop, 3/1/2. Chi enhanced. Iron Fist appears with 3 chi counters that remain while he's stunned. So it seems like all the chi counters are going to stay on while they're stunned. Man, this one is much harder to read. Pay a red, If it's melee combat, you can remove the chi counter, and his abilities are can't be struck. When he strikes, stun. Oh, so it's the same as the main character. Normally, I do not like superpowers on one drops, but this is a superpower. So with a one drop Iron Man and a red, you can stun any character in the game, assuming they don't have like a shock to the system or something. That's actually pretty strong. That is way better. And he comes into play with the chi already on him. Yeah, this one drop is better in every single possible way over Colleen. Yeah, I think that's really good. And again, that's overcoming the hurdle that I don't generally like one drops that require you to have a superpower, a location to also get some value out of them. But this value is so good. Like this kind of falls into the Charlie 27 bucket. He's got a couple health, so he'll stick around for a few turns. Maybe he can be a low value blocker, but also has the ability to flip a location and kill anything on the board when he attacks. That's great. Hellcat, 2 cost, 3/4/1. When she appears, put a -1 counter on each exhausted enemy character. That's fine. There's some games where that's going to look really, really good. There's some games where it's going to be totally irrelevant. I think that's mostly a meta call. If you think you're going to have the kind of meta where this sort of light debuff spread out across an enemy board is going to make sense, then you play this card. But generally, I mean, it could be almost useless. Like, as a 3/4 for 2, that's not the end of the world. That's an okay stat block at that turn, but I like to see a little more out of my cards than just having an okay stat block. This power, though, like in the right meta, that could actually be something. Nighthawk, 2 cost, 4/2. When he appears, you may put a supporting character with cost 1 from your hand onto your side. So it does feel like they're kind of pushing defenders in this let's go wide, swarm the board kind of mode. And if there's going to be decent payoffs for this, then maybe that will make me like Colleen a little bit more. I mean, at least she's fitting into. Colleen and Nighthawk seem to be pushing you towards the same type of strategy. The zoom in Colossus and She-Hulk in the background on this Nighthawk is very distracting. We've seen them do like background removal and some manipulation of the art before. I cannot comprehend why Colossus and She-Hulk weren't wiped out of this image to just have the two color bars behind him. Weird. I mean, clearly this is like off of a cover or something, given. Anyway, I don't like the way this art looks. But so he lets you recruit a guy for free. That's pretty good if you're trying to go wide. And characters with flight can't strike Nighthawk. Now, air superiority is one of those things that when it's not doing anything, it's like useless. Like if I just don't have flyers in my deck that is just blank, it does nothing. You're just playing a 4/2 flyer. But if my main character has flight, all of a sudden air superiority with if you have a main character who has 4 health, I can just start smashing him and you can't hit me back. And you can't, unless you have flying blockers, which he can also potentially eat, you can't stop me from getting to him. Yeah, I think this guy has some playability. White Tiger, 3 cost, 3/3/2 with leap, so flight during your turn, and pay a blue, put 3+1 counters on White Tiger. Until she gets turned face down, she can't gain -1 counters, and +1 counters can't be removed from her. So she becomes basically a permanent 6/6 for, well, not permanent, but until they can't deal with it without stunning her, I guess. So it's permanent in the sense that she can't be latent mutation. I guess permanent's the wrong word. A more durable version of +1 counters. I do like that, especially thinking about how Defenders and Underworld kind of play into each other. Underworld has a lot of characters that use -1 counters as part of their theme. So giving a Defender character, like especially that we're seeing these two teams in the same 200 card box, giving the Defender character the ability to sort of counterplay what the Underworld team has at least a sub theme of. I like all of that. 6 attack on 3. That's a big deal. 6/6 on 3. Think about other 6/6 on 3 characters that we've seen. Stuff like Creature from the Black Bog, which is basically unplayable. This is way, 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 way better than that. If you have the blue for her when you play her, a 6/6 flyer on 3 is a big deal. I think this is a good card. All right, Jessica Jones. Her previous version was one of the most played 3 drops ever in the game. What do we have here? 4 cost, 5/5/2 flyer. Okay. When Jessica appears, look at the enemy player's hand. I have always liked the detective work keyword. I feel like being able to look at the enemy hand is one of those things that is like a really skill rewarding power. If you look at that and you're able to craft your plays around that information, you can just get so far ahead. Super strength, double all +1 counters, and attack and defense increases Jessica would get in melee combat. Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Oh, you won't like her when she's angry. So she'd get +6 off of that? Wow. Okay, so I really like this. I like this primarily because it's doing a completely different thing than the previous Jessica Jones. The one we had before was a control tool. This is just a beater of a card. And she's beating a dude up in the, again, not throwing a punch with very good form, but beating a dude up in the card art. Yeah, okay, I'm in on this. Yeah, I like this card. I like it. 4 cost, Luke Cage, 5/5/2, super strength, double all +1 counters and attack and defense increases he would get in melee combat. Okay, so it's the same as Jessica Jones, and he has the healing factor. So a 5/5/2 that you can pull wounds off of for green, and he can just keep growing. And if you build your deck around this, so you have plot twists that give +1 counters during combat, you're going to be able to get him bigger and bigger. Yeah, I like both of these cards. I mean, I almost wish they weren't at the same drop because you almost have to choose which one of the super strength effects you want because having both might be a little clunky. But yeah, I'm in on both of these. Street Smart. So this is a defender's plot twist. Any turn, any combat, or any turn combat, I should say. Choose a character without flight on your side. If you do, put a +1 counter on it and draw a card. Oh, so it replaces itself and you get a +1. And you can't use it on Jessica Jones. Hmm. Why? Why? What? It literally has Jessica Jones in the card art. Why? What? You can't. Oh my gosh. Okay. This is upsetting. You cannot give me a card that the Jessica Jones, the super strength keyword, would benefit from this tremendously. It replaces itself. It puts 2+1 counters on your character if they have the super strength. It has Jessica Jones in the card art, and you can't play it on Jessica Jones to take advantage of her super strength. Ah, oh, jeez. I don't know if it's going to be good enough. As much as I like the idea of a plot twist that replaces itself, you play it and you get another card immediately. +1 in combat. I mean, sometimes it will be enough. Sometimes all you need is the +1 to push the attack through or bounce that attack. But the fact that it's like weirdly limited to not hit characters with flight. Now, most defenders don't have flight. So depending, I guess you choose the Luke Cage 4-drop instead of the Jessica Jones one, I guess. So yeah, it's probably okay. The fact that it has the card draw in it, I think saves it. The overall effect is pretty weak, especially if you're thinking about like, oh, I need to have a defensive plot twist in defenders. Or do you ever play this over super senses? I guess if the format doesn't allow super senses, maybe you have to. But yeah, wow. This card might be better than I'm giving it credit for, and I'm just coming down on it so hard because it makes me insane that Jessica Jones is in the card art and this card can't be used on Jessica Jones. It's like when they gave us characters that are actually holding guns or shurikens or other ranged weapons on characters that don't have range. Like, come on. All right, 6 cost Daredevil. He's a 6/6 with dodge and master martial artist. So yeah, we've seen cards like this before. In fact, I think we've seen a Daredevil that's kind of similar to this. Being a 10/10 on 6 is great. If your opponent has range, maybe he's not as good, except this one can't be ranged attacked. So it sort of plugs the hole. Your opponent's actually going to have to deal with this guy as a 10/10 unless they can remove his powers with like Cosmo or something. So yeah, this is a playable. I mean, he's not doing anything that flashy, but 10/10 on 6 is a big number. 20 composite stats. Come on. 6 cost Doctor Strange, Defenders affiliated 5/11/1 flyer. Build phase, blue or yellow, draw a card. He can use it any number of times. There does seem to be a theme across these cards of having superpowers that feel very much like backup powers. And I wonder if that has something to do with the way the Moon Knight main character is structured, the way you have to have all four colors in that deck to make sure that you can use his powers when you need to, but he's probably unlikely to need all four of any one given color. So you have these characters that like they're okay even without using their superpower, and if you have the draw or the resource surplus that lines up so you can use the superpower, well then they start to become a little better than okay. I love drawing cards. I'm not sure that a 6-drop that I have to invest locations into. So I basically it's not you're not even getting ahead because you're paying 1 for 1. You have to recruit this guy for 6. 11 is a pretty big number probably on turn 6. But then you've got to invest a card. So it's like you're trading a yellow for a random draw off the top of your deck. Yeah, potentially that's what you need to do to find the answer for the situation. But like objectively, as far as like power level analysis, that's not doing a lot. It's kind of a lateral move. You're trading a card for a different card. So you're really cycling more than you're developing card advantage. I don't know. I don't know about this guy. Hulk. Man, I can't even. You want to talk about card art where the character doesn't seem featured? You can't even really see Hulk. This is all shadow. 7 cost, 12, 7, 3. That's awesome. Super strength. That's awesome. So that doubles counters and stuff. It's what Jessica Jones and Luke Cage had. An incredible leap. He has flight on your turn, and when he leaps over at least one enemy character, he can't be stunned this combat. Well, that seems extremely good. 12 attack on 7 isn't the biggest number, but it's probably big enough a lot of the time. The ability to not get hit back with his somewhat weak 7 defense. All your combat pumps work double on this guy. Even if he does get hit back, you're still going to swing with him probably 3 times unless there's lethal at play. Yeah, this guy's a very, very playable 7 cost. She-Hulk, 7 cost, defender, 7/10/2, thunderclap, choose an enemy, pay a green, choose an enemy character. She-Hulk could melee attack. It loses powers this turn, and you may move it to the back row. That's a great way to get through an annoying flyer to be able to hit the MC for that last attack. And super strength. Yeah, the number of these characters that have super strength definitely makes the street smart or streetwise, yeah, street smart plot twist look better, although my criticisms still stand. Defender. Choose a defender's character on your side to get +3 attack or +3 defense this turn. This is excellent. Excellent. Any turn combat, this could be a +6 for these super strength characters. Yeah, I like that a lot. So this is either a shock to the system or find cover, like depending upon how you want to think about it. I mean, it's not exactly it. I said that wrong. It's either an open fire or a find cover, kind of. Make a plan. Any combat, defender, plot twist, choose a character in the combat to get +1/+1. Enemy effects can't prevent it from striking this combat. Oh, okay. That seems kind of narrow. So that would be meta specific. Presumably something like shock to the system would still work since it reduces the attack to 0 and then you don't strike. Or does that negate shock to the system? I feel like this would prevent an effect that says character can't strike or I can't be struck, something like that it would prevent those things, but shock to the system would still work. Not totally sure, but that would be my intuition. Yeah, there's going to be places where this looks good, and the super strength ability on a bunch of the defenders makes this look even a little bit better. Not bad. All right, finally, Taskmaster main character. Yes! Underworld affiliated 5/2/5 with range. Choose a face-up enemy character and one of its printed keyword powers. Until your next turn, Taskmaster gains that power and has +3 defense. So he can functionally become a 5/5 and gain something else cool, like Martial Artist maybe. Procedural memory. When a character on your side gains a power, Taskmaster gains 1 XP. Cool. There's a bunch of effects in the game that are going to help you to accelerate this. There's equipment, there's plot twists, there's other characters. There's lots of ways to give new powers to characters that exist in the game. So getting him leveled up, I feel like is going to be relatively quick, if maybe a little bit draw dependent. All right, Taskmaster level 2, he becomes an 8/6. He still has the energy shield. It still functions the same way. Choose a keyword, and then he gains Trainer for Hire, yellow. Choose a keyword power. That Taskmaster has had this game. Choose a supporting character on your side to gain that power until it leaves play. Oh, so he can hand off the cool thing that he stole. Yeah, okay, this works. I mean, is this going to be the meta breaker? No. I mean, his stats are the 8 is good, the 6 is going to be very punchable. I mean, we've looked at 3 drops that can punch a 6. He's only got 5 health. Yes, he has a built-in way to increase his defense, but that's going to be not super reliable. The quality of what you get out of paying that blue or even the yellow is all going to be dependent on what your opponent is playing. Presumably, they're playing good cards, but yeah, there's going to be some variance there. But overall, I'm excited to play this guy. I think he looks cool. Okay, next up we have a defender's equipment. Okay, well, these are just here in the order that Mitch uploaded them. Thanks to Mitch for uploading all these. Evidence, zero cost, defenders affiliated equipment, one of a kind, lock them up. Evidence appears exhausted. When evidence readies, you may KO this equipment. If you do, move a face up enemy supporting character to your side and hide it. It can't be turned face up for the rest of the game. Wow. I mean, if it can live for a turn, that's a really good removal. Holy smokes. Uh, Wow. So it's worth noting that in the core game rules, when it talks about the ready part of the turn in the recovery phase, it actually only specifically mentions units, supporting characters, main characters. And while we have been told verbally that equipment is intended to ready during the recovery phase, like characters, at least at the time of this recording, I don't think that has actually been updated in the rules. So shout out to Sean Powell for beating that drum, because I do think that's something that needs to be handled. Like, we all know that's the errata, but like a new player who comes in and maybe hasn't found the community yet is gonna stumble on this. We need to have it in the rules. Yeah, pay 0, keep it alive for a turn, kill one of your opponent's things forever. Seems pretty good. Richmond Riding Academy, one of a kind, defender starting main character required. Yes, I wish they would use more of this effect. At the start of your build phase, you may turn this location face down. If you do, gain 1 recruit point. Ooh, interesting. So it's like a 1-turn ramp. I mean, you probably play it. There's probably room in your deck for this. Like, you want stuff to put in your row anyway, and this lets you like skip ahead and play something bigger. Maybe you can, skip turn 4 or skip turn 5 or whatever, and just go straight from 4 to 6 and free up those extra slots in your deck for something else. Yeah, yeah, that's play. I mean, it's one of a kind, so I guess you can't count on it though. Man, that's a lot of restrictions. I mean, I think you probably do it if you have a defender starting main character, because on the games where you see it, it could be potentially huge. But I don't think you can build your whole deck around counting on this effect to show up. Sanctum Sanctorum reprint. We've seen this with X-Men. Again, I'm not crazy about this, seeing these cards reprinted, taking up slots in our set for cards that some of us already have many play sets of. I mean, I think I bought the Defenders box 5 or 6 times over the years. I don't need more of these, but I also understand that new players are the life's blood of our game, so we have to see these kind of cards to make the game accessible. I was going to say for people to be able to pick it up in their game store, but that's literally not going to be able to happen anymore. Actually, you know what? I've completely changed my stance on this. If the only way to get this game is to be hardcore enough into it that you're going to the upper deck shop and ordering from that one location, the idea that we're going to have these players who are going to buy this and not, like, we're all hardcore now. Like, so I think maybe the game does need to take a turn and cater to the harder core players. If this is the direction the game is going, these kind of reprints are a little bit of a bummer. I feel if we're giving up on recruiting new players via them picking up a random thing that they see at their game store, and it seems like that's the move, then these kinds of reprints seem a lot less useful to me. But maybe that's my bias. Okay, moving into some more main characters. Bullseye. This art is kind of like, I like that it's dynamic, but man, the look on his face. It's like he tooted on somebody and they can't figure out who dropped it. Uh, so mischievous, so villainous. Okay. Underworld affiliated 4/3/5. He's got range, anything deadly. Pay a red, put a +1 counter on Bullseye, and he has sniper for the turn. Basically, this is stealth, but for ranged attacks. When Bullseye strikes a defender in ranged combat, he gains 1 XP. If the defender is in the background, he gains another. We cannot count on our opponent putting their characters in the back row to allow Bullseye to get 2 XP per attack, so you have to assume that he's probably going to have to get to 4 before he levels. What do we get? 775 with range, not a bad stat block. He still has the ability to gain a +1 counter and have sniper. So I like that the opposing main character can't hide from you with this, other than like maybe the safeguard ability with like Herbie or Danger or something like that. But just putting somebody in the front row is not going to protect them from Bullseye because he's a sniper, assuming you draw the reds. Anything's anything. Main phase, pay yellow, choose an enemy player to reveal a random card in their hand. If it's an equipment, I like that it's random. Before I read this list, random makes this cool. If this wasn't random and they could control it, that would be I mean, they still have some control over it, knowing what it is. They might structure their turns in such a way to not have like the worst possible things for them, but let's see what it is. All right, so equipment, KO and equipment. Yeah, that's probably not going to be super relevant. Location, turn an enemy location face down. That's okay. Plot twist, they discard it. And supporting character, stun a supporting character. That's pretty good. All of those are pretty. The equipment one, of course, is going to be matchup dependent, and the location one is where you could get hosed and get nothing. But like, if they reveal a supporting character and they have no supporting characters this sun, I don't feel bad about that necessarily. Like, you're winning that game. I mean, it still sucks to pay a yellow and not get anything out of it, but cool. Maybe couple him with some hand reading abilities. That could be cool. I like this guy. I like what he's doing. Electra, Underworld, range 345. Pay 2 greens. Strike the defender twice. Not even the stars are safe in the sky. Level up 3. When Electra strikes the defender in melee combat, she gains an XP. So if you get that draw where you have the 2 greens, you probably pay it, even if you don't need the 6 attack to be able to strike twice, just so you can get the 2 XP, and then that way you basically be able to level up in 2 turns. Probably expecting to draw 2 greens out of your 8 is not, I guess maybe 9 if you count Nexus. No, Nexus doesn't work with main characters. Yeah, I don't know if she's going to be able to use this to accelerate her level up, but if she can, she will. Maybe your opponent tries to crash their main character so you can't attack it and they don't recruit anything to slow down your level up. So they do have some control over that. Then again, if your opponent's not playing any characters, they are kind of ceding the board to you, which doesn't feel too bad. Once she levels up on turn 2 or 3, what does Electra turn into? She becomes a 5/9. She still has the ability to strike twice, which means effectively 10 attack if you're drawing all the greens in the world. That is a lot of green. That's an expensive power. And sharing Shuriken. Pay main phase, pay red, put 5 -1 counters on an enemy supporting character Electra could attack, divided how any you choose. Oh, so it doesn't have to be. Oh, wow. So she's like throwing a fan of shurikens. That is cool. I like this. This is a punchy, aggressive main character, statted to today's versus game. Unlike there has been some power creep over the years, and like the game has changed. This is a modern take for versus 2 PCG for Electra, and I really like basically everything that's going on here. We don't have kind of the cheeky, super awesome games kind of joke. I mean, it wasn't a joke, but like the whole hand experience where the main character we go hide in your hand. Yes, she's a hand ninja. Now she's in your hand of cards. Like, we get it. Dad jokes are cool. But this is much better as far as a functional main character. The 5 attack is gonna hurt her if you don't see those 2 greens to turn it into 10. But if your opponent's trying to hinder your ability to level up, maybe you're already ahead on board by the time she levels, and then you can sort of coast on that. I really like her ability to take out a crowd of characters. So if you don't see the greens and you do get behind on board, she can still potentially wipe some people out. If you buff up her attack, everything here looks better. That might be the sort of thing you would want to do in an aggressive deck. Yeah, I'm with this. I like it. I like Electra. Kingpin, maybe the best art in the set I've seen so far. Underworld, they're all Underworld. I'm not going to say that anymore. 165. Criminal Mastermind, pay a yellow, choose an enemy character, and remove any number of counters from it. That is very situational, but sometimes could be game winning. At the end of your turn, if you have exactly 2 face-up supporting characters on your side, Kingpin gains an XP. That is a frustrating level of condition. It shouldn't be that hard. Like, even as soon as turn 2, you should be able to build a deck in such a way. Like, if you put 12 1-drops in your deck, you should be able to drop 2 of them on turn 2 and just not attack, so you don't run any risk. But it could also, like, it just could line up that you get into trouble and can't get it, which would be pretty annoying. I think that's unlikely, though. You have a lot of control over this. The only thing, your opponent can't really get in the way of this too much, but your deck variants could. But what do you get once you level up? He retains Criminal Mastermind, which is just a great counter ability again. He becomes a 6/8/5 mob boss. Pay a green in the main. Put +1/+1 counters on each face-up supporting character on your side, equal to the number of face-up supporting characters on your side. So you need to start the swarm early to trigger his level up, and then you continue the swarm throughout the game, and he gets benefited from being the mob boss. The previous Kingpin that we had really focused his thing on like controlling territory. It was very location focused. This one is more focused about leading the swarm of enemies. I think this is a cool thematic direction to take Kingpin. I think this card art looks awesome. I think this character has a reasonable level up condition, and his level 2 powers feed directly into that level up condition. Plus, knowing that your units are probably going to be smaller since you're trying to go wide rather than go tall, if you run into an opponent that's trying to go really tall on one character with a bunch of +1 counters, which could be a thing that could be a problem for your deck, you have built-in ability to nuke that from orbit with the Criminal Mastermind power. I like literally every single thing about this card. I like it all. I like everything. The card art, the theme, the way it plays. I think this is great. Here's Taskmaster again. All right, next, Mary Walker. 4 cost, 4/6/1, one of a kind. Oh, she has range. Mutant 0 when Mary attacks or gets powered up, put a -1/-1 on the defender. In order to even think about this card, you need to remember that there is a Mary Walker set of cards that existed the first time we got a 200 card box with Underworld and Defenders. And I think this is just going to complement that package. I wanted that package to be good. It never really felt like it got there, even in the nascent days of the beginning of the game when there was just not that much going on. It was like Thanos and Luke Cage kind of hanging out with like Magneto, and there was a handful of tier 2. There was Thanos, a handful of kind of like tier 2 guys, and then a lot of decks that just kind of didn't do. There was a lot to love in those early days of Versus, and in some way, my heart will always stay in the Legacy meta, Legacy, Defenders, A-Force, and the base box, as a set of cards to play from. That's a really, really fun card pool. That said, uh, I do. Oh, and I guess Aliens was maybe in there too. That said, there's been a lot of power creep over the years. Well, maybe not a lot, but the game has changed in some fundamental ways. This is a Mary Walker that's going to fit into that set of Mary Walkers. She's a little bit more powerful than the ones we've seen before, but the ones we saw before didn't totally work out that great. I don't know if adding I mean, you got to power her up and maybe she can do some cool things. I don't know. I am going to play with this. I don't have high hopes though. My Mary Walker's broken my heart too many times already. I tried really hard. Okay, Diamondback. This is a 1 cost, 3/1/1 with range. Pay a green. Diamondback strikes each front row enemy character. Uh, I say it every time. I'm not a huge fan of superpowers on 1-drops. I want a 1-drop that I don't have to, that isn't a combo piece. I don't want a combo card. I want just a thing that does a reliable thing on turn 1. Some 1-drops can get around those rules by having enough health that they stick around for a while. Uh, Maybe against a deck like the Kingpin deck that we described, if it's trying to go wide, you play this guy, but you don't play him on turn 1, you play him on like turn 5 and play him and then throw knives into their whole front row. It doesn't happen that often that you're going to have a bunch of enemy characters lined up in the front row that are going to die to 3 attack. Like sometimes maybe, yeah, I guess against Outriders, this guy looks dope. Oh, could you imagine You play Outriders, turn one, you play this guy, hit the green, and stun every single one of them. So there are going to be niche applications. This is a tech card, and I like one cost tech cards. But as a one drop, as a thing to do on turn one, most of the time I don't think that's going to be the role this guy serves. I think this guy is going to be a backbreaker as he's doing in the card art, which shout out to Bane. Uh, the back laughing at my own joke like a loser. Uh, most of the time, I think he's going to be in your deck as something that you do later in the game to counteract once the swarmy opponent has built that flood of characters, or it's a direct counter to Outriders. All right, Hammerhead, one cost. While melee attacking, he can't be struck. He is a 2/2/2 with range, and he has super strength. This is much more my speed as a one drop. He has decent stats to begin with. Super strength is going to allow you to buff this guy up potentially for a significant chunk of the game. If you're playing plot twists that put +1 counters on him, they get even bigger benefit. And he can't be hit while he's attacking, which is kind of like having ferocious, sort of. Uh, yeah, every single thing about this I like a great deal. We do have the plot twist now that turns off the ability to not be struck. So there is going to be more counterplay for this effect out there in the game. But as far as one drops go, this is exactly what I'm looking for. If I want to play one drops in my deck, I want stuff that I can get some value out of that isn't a combo piece. I don't have to have something else to go with it to make it good. But if you do have that plot twist that gives +1 counters, this guy makes it even better. This guy's very playable. Crossbones, 2 cost, 3/3/1 with range. While he's in combat, enemy players can't play plot twists, and he has martial artist, so he's functionally a 5/5 while in combat that turns off plot twists for the opponent. I love every single thing about this card. I like the fact that he has range, so early in the game, you play him out on turn 2, you put him up front. He's an annoying body they have to deal with. Uh-oh, characters are starting to get too big for him. You drop him into the back row, and all of a sudden you have an extra +3 on your team attacks from the back row. So he's got utility in all kind of, well, I mean, by the late game, his stats are going to be pretty badly outclassed by other things that you're playing, but he's a 2 drop. As far as a 2 drop, this guy has utility up through turns like 4 or 5, maybe even 6, depending upon what's going on. I think that's great. This is a fantastic card. Card art's fine too. I wish they would have pulled something from the Brubaker run. I love the way Brubaker drew Crossbones, but I think we already have. I'm thinking of old verses where we had the Crossbones with the Brubaker. Anyway, moving on. 2 cost, Shocker. He's a 4/1/2 with range. 1 is not a good number for your defense. If Shocker is attacking, you can pay a blue and put 2 -1 counters on the defender. Any turn combat, if he is defending, you can pay a blue and put 2 +1 counters on him. So he's got some versatility. He's got enough health to stick around for a turn or two. 4 attack is going to be enough to stun a lot of main characters early in the game before they level up. And even if they do level up, maybe they attack him and all of a sudden he's a 6 attack. That's pretty good. Um, yeah, I don't think this guy's as cool as Crossbones because you have to actually invest some blues into him to really get the good value out of him. But even 4 attack with range on turn 2 is maybe good enough. If you have a flying main character that you put in front of this guy and he's just taking shots from the back row, 4 is a relevant number through turn 2, 3, maybe even turn 4. And if they can't protect their main character, he could be stacking wounds on your win condition with 4 attack. Yeah, that's a playable card. Nuke, man, of all the pieces of art you could pick for Nuke, come on. Yeah, this is so like this guy has done so much crazy stuff, and they got him shirtless sitting in a room. Like, cool. All right, 3 cost, 4/4/1 with range, aka Scourge, adrenaline pills, combat, pay a green. If this is your first attack this turn, ready nuke at the end of combat. That's cool. And he has super strength. Yeah, I like this. 4/4 for 3 is fine. Like it's not a great stat line, but if there's still like 1, 2 drops, unleveled up main characters in play, you could definitely find targets that you could attack into and pay this green and not get stunned and then get a second attack with this guy. It doesn't say that it has to be melee, so he could potentially even attack into somebody who has 4 attack, but with range, avoid getting cracked back and still get the green paid off. Now, the drawback is this is a combat ability, so you have to commit to wanting to ready, and your opponent knows it, and that's a flare. You send that flare up. If your opponent can stun this dude and make sure you don't get the ready at end of combat, they are gonna do it. This is play. I love it. I really like this card. I think he's good. Fixer. I hate this art. 4 cost, flight range 3/3/2. Anything I can think of. Pay red on the main phase and choose 2. Either a character on your side gets flight, KO an equipment, look at an enemy player's hand, a character on your side gains range, or move an enemy character to the front or back row. There's a lot of flexibility there. I'm not crazy about 3/3 on turn 4. However, if you know that your deck is looking for that kill on turns 4, turns 5, and you know that there's annoying flyers in the meta, you could run this guy, give somebody on your side flight, push one of their flyers out of the way, stun the other one, and then fly over the ground guys. So he could definitely, this suite of powers can definitely be combined to get a lot of penetration into the opposing player's side of the field, even if they've got flight blockers. But you got to keep this guy alive. And at 3/3 on 4, his attack and defense is already a little weak. 2 health means you're probably going to get 2 turns out of him. I mean, maybe somebody attacks into this dude for lethal because they're afraid of those powers. But without the red, if you don't have the red, I think this guy's probably bad, just bad. Like there's no getting around that. So if you're putting this guy in your deck, I think it's to solve specific problems that are present in the meta, and you're running him with those reds. Another Mary Walker, a 4 cost, 5/5/1. You may only have one of this in your deck, and when she appears or gets powered up, put a -1 counter on each enemy supporting character. Cool. I'm excited to see more Mary Walkers. I don't have a lot more to say about the cards. Again, I'll play them. I hope they're good, but I don't have super high hopes. Another Mary Walker, 4 cost, 3/7/1, one of a kind, and self defense. When Mary Walker gets attacked or powered up, put a -1 counter on each attacker. So these each put -1 counters out there in slightly different ways. This is very reminiscent to what the original Mary Walker set did. And it just, is it good enough? I don't know. Contract. Underworld affiliated equipment costs 0, one of a kind. Enters. It appears exhausted. While the contract is ready, when the equipped character stuns a defending supporting character, you may KO the contract and draw cards equal to that defending character's cost. So a card draw engine that again has to survive for a turn before you even have a chance to extract value from it, because it has to ready. Yeah, I could see it being good, but it really kind of depends on what's the rest of your deck. You have to be able to protect this thing for a turn, or it's just a dead nothing. I mean, it costs 0, but it's a card from hand, and it does nothing if you can't protect it. So the upside is there. It certainly is tempting bait. I don't think you can like rely on it because it's one of a kind, but I mean, people put Nullifier in their deck, and that's one of a kind, and it has made big waves in a lot of different events. Drawing 3, 4, 6 cards, like this could be a really big deal. You play this, especially maybe if there's a way that you can ready it. I don't know if we have the way to ready equipment the same turn it's played, but yeah, potentially scary stuff if your opponent's drawing, half their remaining cards in their deck because you've got. I want to attack Galactus with this thing. Let me just draw all the cards. Yeah, I like this. Another Mary Walker. I have to assume this is the last one of the set. I assume there's 4 of them. One of a kind, 6/4/1, and when she appears or gets powered up, stun an enemy supporting character that has a -1 counter on it. So this one's kind of like a finisher after your other Marys have teed her up. Sure. Same comments. I am excited to see the Mary Walker stuff get more support. I'm skeptical that it's going to be good enough, but I hope that it is. I'm excited to try it out. 5 cost Tombstone. This is wild card art. 7/4/2 with range. He cannot be struck by characters with range, so bulletproof. So that's a little different than dodge. Dodge is they can't attack him, or can't be struck during ranged attacks, and this is can't be struck by characters with range, and that is true, I believe, even in a melee attack. If they have range on them, they can't hit him. So, and he has super strength. I really, really like the super strength is the keyword that's just being spread all over this whole set. I like the idea of giving double efficacy to all of your pump plot twists. Very good. Bullseye, 6 cost, 572 with range. Bullseye can team attack with any main character. Love the mercenary keyword. We've seen this on a lot of characters over the years. It's very good. Killing's an art. While Bullseye is ranged attacking, the combat can't be canceled. The defender's defense can't be increased. He always strikes, and he has quick draw. While ranged attacking, enemy characters can't strike him. Holy smokes. This is a game finisher for any aggro deck. You put this in, it doesn't matter what else you're playing. You play this guy on 6, you team attack with your main character, and this shuts off a ton of stuff. They can't cancel the combat. They can't increase their defense with plot twists. He's getting like just so many things, so many great words. This is an aggro game finisher to try to prevent those games from just going on interminably. I like it. Right up there with like Redshift in terms of like a great like 6 cost aggro top end like game finisher. 6 cost, the Hood. 4/8/1 with flight and range. Magic bullets. Main phase, pay a blue. While the Hood is ranged attacking, when he strikes an enemy supporting character that has a superpower this turn, KO it. I don't know if I care about this on turn 6. I mean, maybe you do. If your opponent has some big flight blocker with superpowers, I mean, sure, you range attack into this guy, and it's kind of like match. You know, you can kill a guy and not get hit back if they don't have range and just get them out of the way. 6 cost, 4/8 doesn't feel that good. He's kind of has to have the blue in order for this to be playable. Is this what I want to do on turn 6? I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not super sold on Hood. 7 cost, Kingpin, 8/8/2. I like those stats. While Kingpin is the highest cost supporting character on any side, he has +8/+8. So this is a card that will reward you for ramping. That seems very appropriate, considering Kingpin's theme the first time we saw him was very much centered around locations. I like that here he's rewarded around the city needing its king. Great stuff. Great. I mean, obviously much worse if there are other characters on board that are higher cost than him. But 7 cost, 16/16 with 2 health seems pretty awesome. Purple Man, 4/4/1. This guy costs 7. That is a really bad start for a 7 cost character. Main phase, pay 2 yellow, exhaust each front row enemy supporting character, and move them to your side. When Purple Man gets stunned or leaves your side, move each one back to its owner's side. Well, that's why his stats suck. That's an incredibly powerful ability. Now, it can only hit front row characters. That's a little, I mean, depending upon what your opponent is trying to do, that could be a huge deal. That could just say win the game. You move all their flight blockers out of the way and then just hit their main character in the face and win on the spot. That's the kind of thing we want to see out of 7 cost characters. Like big expensive cards need big expensive impact. This guy is one piece of a 3-piece combo, though. If you don't have the 2 yellows, paying 7 for a 4/4 is completely unacceptable. So you're going to kind of have to go all in on this power. If you want to put this guy in your deck, you need to make sure that when you play him, his pheromones are psychoactive. Otherwise, you're in trouble. Street Fight. This is a underworld plot twist that seems to feature Iron Fist more prominently than anyone else. Choose a character with range on your side in the combat. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. So this is very similar to the Street Smart plot twist, except it has a targeting condition as opposed to a targeting exclusion. Otherwise, it's the same. Sure, whatever. If it fits into your deck with range characters, that's cool. I guess I should check and see if that fixer guy had range, right? Yeah, so this one does feature a character on the appropriate team that has the appropriate power and it can be played on, as opposed to Street Smart, which is, I'm still mad. Disrupt the plan. Any turn combat, choose a character in the combat and get +1/+1 this combat. You may rearrange your formation. That is a slept on power. Being able to rearrange your cards during main phase after combats have happened, like as the last thing you do, you declare a combat and you play this, and then you set up your formation to optimize for defense as opposed to during your turn, which was optimized for attack. That can pose your opponent. I love this kind of stuff. And it's called disrupt the plan. Like the whole turn, your opponent's like, okay, I know what I'm going to do on my turn. I can see where these cards, oh no, my plans have been disrupted. It's so literal. Love it. Underworld combat. Choose an underworld attacker to get +3 attack or +3 defense. Okay. I like that they're giving us +3s on plot twists. Like that was one of my complaints about the game in the early days is that the plot twists just weren't punchy enough. I like where they're at. The art for the new training ground is cool. I like it. The streets, one of a kind. Underworld main character required. This is our city. At the end of your turn, you may turn this location face down. If you do, choose an enemy player to get one less recruit point on their turn. So I don't think the correct way to play this is to just flip it willy-nilly. I think the way you're really going to optimize this backbreak is somebody's strategy hinges on I have to play a character named X on this turn and they cost 6 and you do this on 5. Like that kind of thing where you have a little bit of knowledge about your opponent's like their swing turn is going to be 7. That's the turn when you pop this and make sure they only have 6 recruit points and can't pull off their combo. This is disgusting. This is very good. I like this. This is a silver bullet and it rewards a player for not only knowing the timing but knowing the opponent's deck so that the time well I guess in order to know the timing, you have to know the deck. Very cool. I like it a lot. Reprint of Fist Tower. I'm not going to talk about that again. Echo, 3 cost, 5/4/1. She is Defenders and Underworld affiliated. The newspapers call me that. When Echo appears, choose another face-up character on your side. She gains that character's printed keyword powers until she leaves play. Sure, sort of a new Taskmaster. Obviously not as good as the original Taskmaster, but kind of along the same vein of you play a character and you can grab some keyword powers that they're not supposed to have, maybe do some work. I like that you have more control over this one because it chooses a character on your side as opposed to Taskmaster, which pulled from characters on the opposing side. Uh, seems good. Seems good. 4 costs, Black Cat 3/8/1, Defenders and Underworld affiliated. Not your lucky day. Reaction, pay yellow when an enemy player draws 1 or more cards, they reveal them. You may have them shuffle them into your owner's deck, then draw that many -1. Ooh. uh, how do you evaluate that power? That could be the end of the game. Like that could be so good. Or it could be a complete brick. Oh man. I think the way I would like to see this play is a deck kind of built around this, relying on her 8 defense to be sticky starting on turn 4, and you try to fire this off as often as you can and mess up. Because if you start making your opponent only draw 1 card, turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, if they can't clear Black Cat, you've now just cut down the amount of cards they draw by half, and you've basically selected like, oh no, you don't get that good card, and you only get yeah. I don't know if it's going to be good enough because 1 health, it might be hard to keep her around. And without the yellow, she's not really doing a whole lot. 3/8 isn't like the best stat line, but the possibilities of how disgusting this could be are very tempting to me. Okay, 6 cost Taskmaster, Defender and Underworld affiliated. He is an 8/7/1 with range. Henchman Trainer. When Taskmaster appears, choose an enemy face-up character and one of its printed keyword powers. Each character on your side gains that power until your next turn. So sort of a temporary Taskmaster. I wish it wasn't time gated, but there's probably some really broken things that could happen. There's probably some broken things that can happen even with the time gate. 6 feels really expensive though, but I guess if you build the wide board and all of a sudden all your characters gain genius and it lasts until your next turn. Well, no, I guess genius would happen during your next turn, so that wouldn't be a good example, but I don't know, maybe there's something there. I'm definitely not as excited for this 6 cost Taskmaster as I am for the main character. That's what I'm excited for. Electra, Defenders and Underworld affiliated, 5/8/1 with range. Put 5, pay a red, put 5 -1 counters on an enemy supporting character that Electra could attack, divided how you choose. So kind of similar to her main character version, but I think if I remember right, the main character version scaled with her attack, which is significantly better. No, it is 5, and okay, so it doesn't scale with her attack. So yeah, you can throw 5 throwing stars out there. potentially kill something, hobble a bunch of things, make it small enough that you could hit with your attack. The rest of the art on the new locations, the academy looks very cool. The fortress is fine. The laboratory is fine. Yeah, all that. Okay, so overall, I'm very excited about both teams that are being featured in this box. Yeah, there's a few cards here and there that like I'm not sure they're going to work or I'm less excited about. But overall, we got some great, reasonable main characters with level up conditions that aren't annoying. We got powerful supporting characters. We got cool effects. There is a lot to like in this box. I am pumped for the Defenders of Hell's Kitchen. Like I haven't been for a set in a while. It feels like it's been forever. I know it's been like a year, but since we've gotten our last 200 card box, but this feels like water in the oasis. I'm excited for this one. Okay, this has been the build phase review of the Defenders of Hell Kitchen. I'm Mr. Ben, and you should go win some games.